Good evening. Welcome to the Waseca Area Chamber of Commerce's State of the City addresses. We hope that throughout this series you will enjoy hearing from our county, city, and local school officials. This is the second of our addresses that you'll be hearing this evening. Remember, city council members, county commissioners, and school board members are legislators. Together, they constitute a legislative body that is given authority by the state constitution and state laws to make our governing policies. Our political system is a representative democracy. We elect these individuals to make policy decisions on our behalf, which they do by taking action during open public meetings. Our local governments involve the residents and special interest groups in the policymaking processes. In addition to the county commissioners, city council members, and the school board members, tonight we will hear from other elected or appointed local government officials. Our address this evening will last 1 hour, with our speakers taking 30 minutes to address the state of their area of expertise. We'll then have our moderator or panel ask questions generated by our legislative committee. The session will last 15 minutes. We'll then take a brief break and collect questions from our audience. We truly hope you enjoy participating in your government process. Thank you.
Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for allowing me, along with our city manager, our finance director, public safety director, and council members Christensen and Schrader to share some of your time tonight to address the state of our city. Thank you to the Chamber of Commerce Legislative Committee for facilitating this event, the Waseca Public Schools for providing this wonderful space, and most importantly, thank you to our community for supporting all of this, because without you, none of this is even possible. My name is Randy Zimmerman, and I'm very honored to be your mayor. After being originally platted in 1867, the City of Waseca eventually incorporated on February 23rd, 1881. The new city experienced rapid growth in the early years, almost doubling in size by the turn of the century, and continued that rapid growth for many decades. Most notably, Waseca was fortunate to have both an east and westbound and north and southbound rail system, and was the hub for agricultural commerce, with the Everett and Ogdenball flour mill leading the way. Waseca was also a destination location for rest and relaxation, for intellectual enlightenment, and tourism. This success led to several other homegrown companies which became international companies, including defense contracts for the E.F. Johnson Company. Rounding out the heydays for our city was the addition of the University of Minnesota campus, effectively making Waseca a bustling college town. Currently, we are quite fortunate to have an eclectic community of small business owners and homeowners who have made their own personal investments. Waseca definitely has a storied history. I could go on for well over an hour on it, probably a half a day. But at any rate, with many remnants of our past still very much seen and celebrated. Waseca has its own folklore, unique to our community's social tapestry. Many families have been here from the start, yet very, very much willing to welcome new ones to plant their own roots and share in our story. Our past has set a foundation for us, both literally and figuratively, to build upon. However, to honor the efforts of our past and to reverse the downward trend, we must be willing to move forward. We must be creative enough to have a vision. We must dare to dream of our future, and we must be willing to take risks. We must invest in our future, similar to the Sutliffs, the Wards, the Trowbridges, the Everetts, the Johnsons, the Browns, the Corcorans, the Winnegers, the Herders, and all the others that have helped shape our history and lay those foundations for our little corner of the world. The state of Waseca currently is at a crossroads. We can either grow and build upon our past, support local entrepreneurs, or we can squander those foundations in vain. From what I have heard, and the reason I am standing here before you tonight, our community wants growth. The iron is hot. Good people are in the right places to seize on new and exciting opportunities. Conversations have changed, partnerships are being formed, relationships are being rekindled, and the spirit of teamwork is in full steam. We have a beautiful community that simply needs a little nudge, a spark to set off an exciting time for growth and revitalization, and I firmly believe we can lead Waseca towards a very efficient, safe, affordable, and bustling city once again, filled with many opportunities. A shared dream becomes a shared reality. Since becoming your mayor for the first time in a long time, we immediately initiated a lobbying effort to the state and federal governments to get in on bonding bills. Our community simply cannot afford on its own to make the repairs needed to our infrastructure, which is crucial for any of our future success. After several phone calls with Senator Klobuchar and Senator Smith and their aides, and our excellent work by our city staff, and support for our local partners, for the first time ever, Waseca did receive funding from the congressionally directed spending bill, in which we received $2.9 million. This last spring, we were also in on the state bonding bill for approximately $9 million. Unfortunately, the House failed to bring the entire bill to the floor for a vote. However, we have recently had a follow-up meeting with the state bonding chair, and we will be back in the bill again for 2025. Sponsored by Senator Jasinski, who has assured us we are his top priority. He is a great ally for Waseca, along with our newly elected representative, Tom Sexton. Again, this money will be used for much needed infrastructure, new and old. The city and the county now have the healthiest relationship in many years, and that's intentional. We need this partnership because what's good for the goose is good for the gander. The city and county staff have been working more closely together than ever before, and the commissioners and the county administrator are great supporters and advocates for the city. Our relationships with the chamber and the schools are very strong as well. We are making headway towards new opportunities for entertainment, recreation, and quality of life. We have a great city staff who are supported and highly valued. We are all one team. Public safety is now stronger and more efficient, with more to come. A new housing development and new apartment building is on track to launch in 2025, both of which are the first in over 20 years. Several new companies are being courted, and more investors are quite interested in our community, including revitalizing and complementing our downtown area. Lastly, we potentially have a real and viable historic solution for our lake and groundwater quality concerns. We have positioned ourselves for great opportunities, and now it's time to implement the work that has been leading up to this point. Thanks again for the opportunity to share my thoughts, and it's an absolute pleasure to be serving this community. When I mentioned good people being in the right places at the right time, our city manager has been a divine gift for us in pursuing our future prosperity and growth. He's a nuts and bolts guy, a walking and breathing institution with all the details, dotting the I's and crossing the T's, Mr. Carl Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick note, if you happen to pick up a handout by the front door, there's an intro that I have, which is not part of the handout. There's a closing that I have, which is not part of the handout. Because if you had those parts, you'd all get up and leave. So you have to be here to hear something that you're not reading right now, okay? It should become evident when I actually get to the point that what's in the handout is what I'm talking about. What's in the handout is more detail than what I'm talking about. So you can be thinking about, if I'm not touching on an accomplishment or a challenge that comes to your mind that you read, or just that comes to your mind, feel free to jot that down, and then there's going to be a Q&A after I'm done. All right. Thank you for coming. 44 years ago, I started with the City of Waseca as a lab rat and a sewage guy. 44 years later, I'm the head janitor. So you can decide whether or not my career is going in the right direction. I think it is. Speaking of direction, the acronym for State of the City is SOC, which, by the way, in 2017, the City of Waseca hammered out a schedule of compliance with the MPCA to remove I&I, inflow and infiltration, or clean water, from our sanitary sewer system. It's actually your sanitary sewer system, just as much as it is mine. It was interesting that during the local debates, the number one topic of conversation that I heard was city infrastructure, including the sanitary sewer system. Now, ordinarily, I would like to be done talking by now, but I've been asked to give the somewhat longer version instead of the Carl short version. First time in 44 years, so settle back, take notes if you must, and here we go. My first and most important thank you is to all the citizens and utility ratepayers for your understanding of and occasional conversations and suggestions for how to be efficient and effective at the local government level. It all starts with transparency, collaboration, and local Waseca common sense. Also, thank you to all elected officials who represent all of us taxpayers and ratepayers. At the local level, we must balance the books every year, and the independent auditors say that we do that every year. More on that just a bit later. I have a shout out to the Waseca Chamber of Commerce, their legislative committee, Mikhail Rostislavovich, and of course Ann Fitch. Know that your city is working to build bridges to City Hall. I also have a shout out to county government and the school district. I've had the pleasure and honor of getting to know and get some practical work done. That's what it's all about, right? Practical work done with Michael Johnson and Harry Cudspeth. My third shout out is to the city staff, a truly diverse team of folks that I am proud and honored to call co-workers. The issue at hand is simply this. With the local elections, Waseca is at a crossroads, moving forward, beginning to reveal a majority preference, a preference which will require community courage to build strong working relationships and partnership for Waseca's future, to move Waseca forward with conviction. But while the issue at hand may not seem overly complicated, make no mistake, how each of us chooses to conduct ourselves will impact how far we go forward or even backwards, where we end up, and will set the tone of the dialogue and even the debate, which is fine, for years if not decades to come. My next section moves into a record of accomplishments. This section talks about credibility. The recent history of the City Council with a primary responsibility to provide legislative direction to the CM, City Manager, has been to cut the budget, reduce the tax rate from over 90%, while also working to help all city departments to move Waseca forward. Sometimes councils have predetermined goals for taxes. Sometimes councils have a desire to say yes to citizens. Sometimes councils have to say not yet and even no. Accomplishments and directions in the last few years have occurred by reallocating staff funding, reducing staff, cutting expenses, partnering with business expansion, primarily the new ConAgra facility, and also by additional financial support from your city utilities to subsidize the tax levy in order to lower the tax rate. The number of full-time staff is the same as it was 20 years ago, actually one less than it was 20 years ago. Reduced staff at City Hall, Public Works, Parks Department, for increased staff within the Police Department, and 24/7 Fire Department staffing for the safety and the protection of the public. Also recently, the Council has worked to move Waseca forward with how to legalize specialized vehicles such as ATVs, food carts, food trucks, not selling existing parkland, authorizing a dog park, reinvesting many times over in Clear Lake Park, working through state-mandated cannabis legislation, which has just started, more on that in 2025. And as the mayor said, applying for and actually receiving federal bonding and applying for and hoping for state bonding in 2025. Council has also authorized rebuilding city roads, city utilities, authorizing tax abatements, adopted an employee wellness program and policy, adopted a trespass policy. This is a really big one for me. Adopted a trespass policy for city parks to help reduce vandalism, and the council has capped the electric utility capital funding charge. As I review accomplishments within city departments, I have included taglines, overarching themes, some tried and true, some may be new, to help you remember just what they do. To protect and serve. To protect by improving and maintaining a higher than state average clearance rate for crimes. To serve by continuing and strengthening community programs. For example, Shop with a Hero, Salvation Army Bell Ringing Contest, Night to Unite, Treats on the Street, school visits, water carnival, and many parades and special events other than public events. And of course, that's our local police department. Fighting fires and saving lives. Fighting fires with the successful control of a large grass and wildland fire northeast of Waseca on March 3rd, 2024. This fire burnt over 2,000 acres and involved the coordination of 25 agencies and local business partners. Fire department helps to save lives with the addition of a 1-ton Ford Fire Commander truck, which will respond to all in-town medicals and rescues. We maintain 3 full-time shift commanders for guaranteed 24/7, 365 coverage. And coming in 2026, already ordered because of a 3-year time build, we have ordered to replace the 1996 Pierce platform ladder truck engine 523. Next department, professionally designed construction projects for Waseca's future. Engineered street and right-of-way improvements, such as 8th Avenue Northeast, various sidewalk and trail improvements. Waseca's blessed with all of our trails. The downtown brick replacement project, Phase 1, looking forward for Phase 2, Phase 3, Phase 4. Airport improvements. Engineering for safety with safe routes to schools. For sidewalk between Wiss and Fox Meadows. And also recall, we now have our North State Street crossing for the high school. Our community, our growth, city planning, zoning, economic development. The reduction of the personnel budget has been key. Our community, by building bridges of communication and assistance within the Waseca business community. Our growth with Waseca EDA work with Morgan's Meat Market expansion, selling the vacant EDA lot on West Elm Avenue, many small business loans, reduction of the personnel budget, and working on filling empty business buildings such as Corcoran's Manufacturer, Delta Truck Body, and also we've done cooperative work with Waseca County. Next on deck, our dirty hands benefit everyone. The city public works crew paving 2,000 tons of hot asphalt, 250 to 300 degrees. The fall leaf pickup program, 6-week program, 200 dump truck loads, requires the entire crew, plus spring brush pickup. Maintenance and repair of underground infrastructure, maintenance and repair of the entire citywide fleet, snow removal, of course, and reduction of the tax levy personnel budget. Flushing for regulatory compliance. Full compliance with all 30 pages of the permit requirements for the city wastewater plant, and routine state awards for O&M operations and maintenance. Reduction of the personnel budget at the treatment plant. Delivering safe and reliable tap water, safe water with full compliance with all water quality testing requirements. Reliable water through excellent operations and maintenance practices. Working with our customers every day at the utilities office at City Hall. Those ladies collect and reconcile, not just collect, but they have to reconcile an average of almost $800,000 a month in utility payments. Collect and process an average of about 8,000 meter readings per month. Routing and tracking nearly 2,000 work orders annually to all utilities field staff, electric, water, sanitary sewer, and even storm sewer, including customer requests, complaints, and account reconciliations. Financial accountability with transparency. Accountability with a successful or clean audit, financial audit year after year, anticipating the 40th consecutive annual award for excellence in government financial reporting, transparency to the City Council and the public at large, in coordinating the long-term capital improvement plan and annual budget documentation processes. Great parks for our great community. Clear Lake Park, Clear Lake Park, Clear Lake Park. It's a beautiful destination park, not just for us, but for people that come here for Keesler's Campground and just passing through town. It's a great amenity for the City of Waseca. Proactive management of emerald ash borer. Grant funding, a 3-year grant which ends next year of $78,000. We've planted over 150 trees in the last 3 years. We've removed over 90 ash trees in the last 3 years. And we're also treating high quality, hopefully to extend the life on ash trees, which is a 3-year treatment cycle. Oak Park pickleball courts. What a great amenity. So just a short story. We had heard that Keesler's Campground was no longer going to recommend to their patrons using that facility because it was in such disrepair. The council voted to completely refurbish it from the ground up. We now have actually 2 dog parks. The council heard what the citizens wanted, and we got the job done. The Public Works Department also shares work back and forth with the City Park Department. Accountable hometown utilities. Maintain an excellent record of reliable service to outage repairs, responsive customer service, reduction of the personnel budgets. There's a theme there. Current rate analysis for electric, water, and sanitary sewer systems, and no recent utility rate increases. Challenges in helping Waseca move forward. I have 2 overarching themes. To maintain a competitive workplace for highly competent staff, meaning current staff and future staff, because the applicant pool has been shrinking. Reaching for, working towards, and complying with citizen expectations whenever possible, whenever practical, and whenever affordable. Public safety shortage of applicants to fill the open police officer jobs. Just 7 or 8 years ago, we would get anywhere from 20 to 50 applicants. Now we're fortunate to get 1 to 5. The legalization of cannabis. Law enforcement and first responder challenges are multiplied with this. Mental health in our community first responders. This is too important for me not to talk about just a bit. It's estimated that more than half of our calls for service have a mental health component, and we're seeing more and more people with severe mental health issues, which complicate response. Although we have significant experience and training in managing these scenarios, they are always complicated and require a great deal of time and care to resolve safely. For first responders, the day-to-day toll of seeing stressful situations, violence, abuse, and death weigh heavily on our staff's wellness, and we need to provide them with support, education, resources, and services to keep them physically and mentally healthy so that they can continue to serve, which is their mission, of course. The overall need to budget and staff to safely serve our public. We must ensure that we are staffed adequately 24/7 to handle calls for service and keep everyone safe. This has a significant impact on the tax levy. But is this a tax burden or is this a community investment? Realistically and legitimately, it cannot be thought both ways. Engineering, planning, and zoning. Maintaining and improving non-state aid streets. So the tax levy, part of your tax levy goes to repair and to replace streets for which we don't receive grants. We have a street enhancement program, which we spend about $160,000 a year of your tax levy to repair streets that we don't receive state or federal funding for. We also have additional tax levy money to help us reconstruct city streets. So not every street can be reconstructed when folks would like it to be, because we have to balance the budget needs along with the state and federal grants that we get from time to time. Code enforcement. People talk about that. What does that mean? Cleaning up problem properties that appear to be the result of mental health issues. The issue at hand really is quite simple. We live in Minnesota. The state requires due process. Public Works, completing extensive asphalt projects is a challenge. Completing the fall leaf-up pick program while suspending maintenance projects like sewer cleaning. Resolving I&I problems with very limited funds. The Park Department, urban reforestation due to the ash tree species die-off. That's going to be a long-term project. Competing for summer lifeguards and part-time staff with hectic lifestyles of students in competition with better-paying jobs. Finance and HR, ongoing compliance with unfunded mandates from the state and federal governments, telling us what we have to do and sometimes even how we have to do it. The utilities, we have to absorb post-COVID cost increases in all areas of operations and infrastructure projects. We are using strategic debt. However, we cannot over-leverage those utility funds. My reflection on our Waseca. The City of Waseca has a clear record of moving forward. We also have challenges and, yes, problems yet to work through. Some problems, such as unfunded mandates from other agencies, will always be onerous for small local governments to deal with. Some post-COVID perpetual expectations are proving, from my chair, to become unrealistic, such as absorbing costs, cutting the fat, doing more with less, lowering the tax burden without reinvesting in our town. We have accomplished goals and are continuing to work on goals through the core principles of transparency and collaboration. By adopting and living these core principles, we can move Waseca forward. It's a proven reality that transparent and collaborative government is more efficient and effective for the citizens than stale government. In the words of Ben Franklin, if you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. Ladies and gentlemen, I submit to you that failure is not an option. We must move Waseca forward. Thank you.
We'll now start with the questions that were put together by the legislative panel. A lot of these questions will be directed to either the council members, the mayor, city manager, and/or our public safety director. Ann, you have the first question.
Thank you. While the answers to these questions could be complex, we would appreciate if you'd keep them clear and concise. This would probably be most well directed to the city manager or the mayor. According to the city website, our comprehensive plan, which is a long-term development plan, has not been updated since 2013. And then we had the Vision 2030 plan that was put together with heavy community engagement, where the consensus was that the residents wanted the gain and retain scenario. Do you feel we are still following either of these plans, and if so, how?
I think that's a great question. Our planning commission is in the process of reviewing the comprehensive plan. And as far as I'm concerned, the Vision 2030 project and outcome of that project is still very relevant. I actually wanted to touch on it this evening anyway, so funny that it is a question. I know a lot of people spent a lot of time and a lot of effort on that project. And as far as what I think we or other people want to accomplish for Waseca, is not reinventing or not coming up with anything new, fandangled idea. It's really, in essence, delivering on what that Vision 2030 project came up with. So, Carl, you can follow up with that.
I'd like to add that mostly city staff and mostly the engineering department and folks in that department are rewriting the comp plan. We had set aside $50,000 to hire a consultant, but we needed to save the money, so we didn't do that. Regarding Vision 2030, we are incorporating the key principles of Vision 2030 into the comp plan, which, as the mayor said, is being ongoing basis is being reviewed by the Planning Commission and will also be reviewed through work session, at least one, by the City Council. So there's also a public comment period, public review period that will take place.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Manager. This next question is to our City Manager. Clear Lake has been trying to live up to its name. While the county's weed harvester can clean up the Eurasian water milfoil and the curly-leaf pondweed, what is the city actively doing to ensure Clear Lake can once again be clear and stay clear?
We've spent millions of dollars over the last 10 to 15 years on I&I. That's getting the clean water out of the sanitary sewer system so we can really, what the goal is to eliminate pumping of sewage into Clear Lake, all right? We also have a budget within the engineering department to work collaboratively on projects with the county, and we also treat the city beaches. We are responsible for maintaining the boat landings, but if you're looking at what's the biggest financial input that the city has had in history, it's I&I. It's getting the clean water out of the sanitary sewer system so we don't pump sewage into Clear Lake. That by far exceeds, and just if you're just talking about dollars and cents, is the largest single investment in the history of Clear Lake.
Can I follow up with that real quick? And just to follow up with that, that's why for us to solicit the funds from the federal and state governments is so crucial, because it's kind of a killing two birds with one stone. Not only are we hoping to expedite the I&I replacement and refurbishment, but also it will allow more capacity for our potential industrial users.
Thank you. Our next question will be given by Brian.
Mayor and councilors, will you and/or the city seriously consider removing special street assessments? If not, what is the reason besides people who previously paid per street assessments will be mad? Sure. It's not bad.
Good evening, Mark Christensen, Ward 3. Brian, could you repeat the question again, just so I make sure I answer it correctly?
It was about the special street assessments, if you would be willing to remove them and how you would handle the people that had paid special assessments on streets prior to.
Well, I'm one vote, so my opinion is my opinion only in the sense is that I'm not willing to remove street assessments. I think it's a part of living in a community to invest in your city. And I guess that going backwards, I don't agree with even giving rebates to anybody. I paid a street assessment, well, it's probably been 12, 15 years ago, and paid it every year for the 5 years, my wife and I did. And so I look at it as that is a part of being a citizen of Waseca or Mankato or Owatonna. And again, I would not remove them. I would leave them on there because it is a source of revenue so that we can actually hopefully get more roads done. So, and was there a second part to the question? No. So.
How would you educate the people that have already paid these special assessments if you were to take them away and they said, well, I paid, why shouldn't you keep
Well,
going with it.
okay, so to answer the question, if I would do that, I would look at it as something else. You buy an item and you get so many days. I would tell them that if it's after so many years that they wouldn't be able to get a rebate or get something back. To me, I just see it as an investment in the community. It's just part of being a Wasecan. Is that the right way to say it? Wasecan. And so we have very different options of funding. If you're over a certain age and qualify, you can have it, deferred until later on or until a house sells or as an age. And so, again, to go back to the first point, I would not remove the assessments. I've been up here for almost 20 years, and I feel that's been an important part of our community.
Thank you, counselors. The next question will be given to Eli.
Thank you. Eli Lutkins, a member of the legislative committee here. This is for Carl Sonnenberg. In the past, we have seen the council have a string of meager or flat levy increases coupled with no significant cuts, which then led to some substantial increases in the following years. Will we be on trend to see that again if the council does not make noteworthy reductions or if we do not have meaningful growth to the tax base?
Well, I'm not going to agree with one of the premises, which, if I heard it correctly, is that we've not made meaningful cuts. That's just simply not true, at least from my chair. And if you talk to my department heads, I think they would go along with that. And I think the council would too. The council is full aware that we've made meaningful cuts the last few years. Help me with the rest of your question.
Yeah, so I'll just repeat the question. In the past, we've seen the council have a string of meager, flat levy increases coupled with no significant cuts, which then led to substantial increases in the following years. Are we going to continue to see substantial increases to the budget, or how are we going to get more meaningful growth to the tax base?
Meaningful growth to the tax base means that the entire community needs to reinvest. All right, so the best example of reinvestment in the last 5 years is ConAgra. That was not easy. All right, so we had about 18 months of very close-quartered negotiations with folks from corporate ConAgra, and it was very much a give and take. We didn't want that plant to move to California. That's my short answer on growth. I guess my slightly longer answer on growth is that the EDA is doing what they can with the funds that they have. All right, so there's a levy restriction on what the EDA can spend. So are they spending money? Yes. So for example, they recently passed a forgivable loan program to support the apartment complex option, okay? As far, I think the last part of your question had to do with this sort of sine wave up and down perspective on levy. Part of that I addressed in some of my remarks, because sometimes council members have predetermined vision or a belief on what the tax rate should be. All right, so the tax rate is a calculation. It's the levy in dollars divided by the net tax capacity of the community. So if the community growth stays stagnant, the tax rate will go up if spending increases. So that tax rate, yes, it's a number, but it's also a calculation. It just doesn't mean cutting costs. It means how does the council decide to strategically invest in the future of Waseca. In terms of the sine wave, that's a question for the future. So right now, the 2025 projected tax levy increase is going to be 4.4%. That's going to be voted on December 17th. Now that 4.4% to the average home of $164,000 a year is $2.79 a month. So it also, we can talk about tax rate. Right now the tax rate is 71.7%. 3 years ago, it was about 92.4. Next year, we are projecting it at, I think, 74%. And a straw poll, sometimes I like to do just not a vote, but a straw poll from the council to help us research issues. Straw poll from a couple of the council is keep it in the mid-70s. All right, so that's going to be a challenge. And if that mid-70s is a hard number, then there's hard budget cuts that we're going to have to make. Sorry for that took a while.
Thank you, Carl. Our next question will be directed to our Public Safety Director, and that question will be asked by Dr. Balfer.
Hello, my name is Jay Bolfer. Thank you for coming, community leaders. Very, very thankful to have you and to address the community here. With growing concerns about dwindling applicants and shortage of officers, how does Waseca plan to keep our officers happy, tempting new public service members, and maintain the standard our forces uphold?
Good evening, Chris Markson, newly appointed Public Safety Director. So, three-part question: gaining, maintaining, and essentially keeping everybody happy. Right? I'm gonna put it out there. There's a lot of technical answers to that, but most of the time, the easiest way to keep that is simply to make sure that the culture of our department is as positive as it can be. We're not perfect. I don't think we're expected to be, but by making sure that people are well trained, that we hire people that are invested in making sure that our community is served well, we create a culture of positive interactions with not only our community but with each other, and that just keeps us coming back to work every single day. As far as hiring, I think Carl provided a statistic. Just 7-8 years ago, we would get 30, 40, 50 applicants. Now we get maybe 1 to 5. That's not uncommon. That's a nationwide issue with problems that you've seen, or at least perceptions that you've seen amongst law enforcement and public safety nationwide with conflict type cases, and I could name a whole list of them, but I won't. But so what we're trying to do is, I've told our staff for quite a few years, we're our own best recruiters. So if there's a high school kid who has an interest in getting into law enforcement, take that person under your wing, offer them a ride along. We've gone into colleges and job fairs to have, just have one of our staff members at the job fair, just to say, hey, maybe we're not hiring right now, but if you see our opening on the post board, which is the website where the police officer openings are posted, then we just say, hey, it's a face to a name. Like I talked to that guy from that sergeant from Waseca. He was a nice guy. It might be a good department to work for. And so things like that, getting our name out. We don't really have like a recruitment and recruitment like division. I always say that we're all recruiters. It's not just my job. It's every officer who has interactions with people on the street. So did I miss any part of your question?
No, I think you got it all. Thank you.
Okay.
We are now at the midterm of this address. So what I would ask now is that all of you look into your programs. There's a square card in there for you to write questions for the folks up here on stage. But I do want to say something that's extremely important. All the individuals you see up here in front of you are just not employees or workers of our city. These are individuals that put their heart into our city. I see many, many, many of them at every kind of event you can imagine. So they're just not putting in the time they're needed to put in to do their jobs for us, but they're doing that extra effort to make Waseca a better place and participating in many of the activities that all of us do. So with that, we'll take 5 minutes and we'll be collecting your questions. Thank you. Panel, I'd ask that you take your seats so that we can keep this in a timely manner. We'll begin our questioning with Ann.
This would probably be best answered by the city manager or any councilors or mayor. Will the city provide tax abatement for families who want to come to Waseca and buy and remodel an existing house rather than build a new one, which the tax abatement program only supports now?
I feel like that's a loaded question because that's literally what I would like to do for whether it's somebody coming in and buying an existing house or somebody that's had their home for 10, 20, 30 years, whatever. Something that I hear quite often is that people are apprehensive to update their homes, whether it's siding, windows, etc., because they're concerned about the increase in their taxable and assessed values. And so, and with the growth mindset that I have, and I feel like others have, the idea is to reduce the tax burden for our existing families, our existing business owners. So you can't do that if you're offering abatement to new construction or new builds. So it kind of works against that whole idea. So I am definitely in favor of that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Second question. You guys can decide who wants to answer this one. With the city limited in how it can expand in growth and the city council at odds with the development of subdivisions, will the city repeal the 2-mile radius where a fee is placed upon county residents within this radius without representation in the process of this fee being mandated by the city? The state statute allows the city to do this, but it is not mandatory for the city to implement. Would a more limited radius of 1/2 mile be more appropriate as and if the city limits grow?
Are you deferring to the CM?
I don't want to do all the talking. Carl, we may have to tag team on this one, but that's a really good question, and I have been asked that one several times as well. To be quite honest, I don't have a thorough or complete answer, but I share in the sentiments of the question. I think that's a conversation that we would have to have with our county partners as well when it comes to building officials and planning and zoning resources. I think there's several ways to deal with that situation, whether it's again through that or through an orderly annexation process or whatever. In my opinion, the community of Waseca doesn't stop at city limits. It does go far beyond that. But I get the officialness of it. So I don't know, city manager, you want to add to that or?
From my perspective, it's on the work plan for the planning commission, which means city staff. It's not a top shelf item because remember we have planning and zoning is within the engineering department, planning and zoning, code enforcement, economic development, and we've cut the staff. So is it on my docket? Yes. Do I have an exact date on when it's going to be moved forward to PC? No.
Thank you. Next question will be given by Jay. Jay?
I think you guys can probably decide who wants to answer this one. Beyond Gator Lake and post 2030, what areas would the city like to expand long term?
I'd like to think that this kind of coincides with the last question too. Why are we not looking at annexation? And I agree with our mayor that orderly annexation would be a good place to start. If you're looking for new development, I do agree that maybe going out and partnering or asking some of our communities outside of Waseca how can we serve them? If Mayo Clinic is expanding, how can we serve their need? And how can we bring their people here? And if there's a developer that would like to come in and help build those houses. Mankato's expanding at a huge rate, and getting some of them to be here and looking at some of the property that would be easily to tie into our infrastructure already makes things a little bit more affordable too. However, there is a buy-in yet from the city as well. Does that answer that?
Yes.
You want to add?
I think along with that, again, I'm a planner by trade and my whole life, honestly, but what I look at is the opportunities of taking a piece of property or a piece of land and improving it to an exponential amount, again, with the idea of diluting the tax base or adding to the tax base. And we have an existing properties within city limits already that could easily be improved exponentially, and I think that's the most efficient way to do things, and especially from a cost standpoint for the city, whether it's our downtown area, a couple other parcels of land that are probably screams for residential development, but the processing, you have to have willing participants as far as landowners and whatnot. So, but yes.
Thank you.
As promised, I always try to keep everything on time. It's just about 8 o'clock. So I want to thank all of you for attending and asking your questions, thank our panelists, and thanking our city council and our administration. So thank you for coming this evening. Can we give them a round of applause?